So this is a very important conversation that we're about to have. And yes, we're being joined by someone who is well-versed in conversations around biotechnology, genetically modified food, and the rest. We're joined on the program this morning by Professor Christopher Amoah. We're going to do the congratulations, right? He's the Vice Chancellor of Benue State University of Agric Science and Technology, but he's also, well, the head of CEPSA. Good morning and welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you. Good morning, Cody.
So first, congratulations will be in order.
Thank you.
Because the last time we had you on the show, it was just more of CEPSA and the rest. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wow. I know that they say on easy lies the head that wears the crown. You were doing a lot of hard work already. Now, there's more work put on you, but we'll put that aside and talk about GMOs. Yesterday, we had the Director General of the National Biosafety Agency joining us because there's been that controversy yet again, that debate around GMO on social media now. And there's a lot of, what I call it, theories flying around, some for, some against. But for us on the show, we're also big on what science actually says. What does the research say? What does common sense also say, and what is the future like for Nigeria? So we'll just tie it back first to some of the things that the DG said yesterday. And this was a question that was put to her about whether or not Nigeria can survive without GMOs, whether we need GMOs. So we'll take a listen to what she had to say. It was Jeffrey that asked that question yesterday. So we'll take a listen to the DG, and then we'll come back to you, Prof.
Nigeria actually needs GMO. Our food security. We cannot meet up our food requirements by the rural farming that we do. Even in advanced countries, GMO is being used. But I would like to say it's a matter of choice. Nobody forces anybody. There's a choice. But with our population, with what we see, we need to have GMOs. We need to have the GM seeds for planting by our farmers, and not planting of grains, but of seeds. And even in advanced countries, even just recently, in the UK, they approved the importation, approved some grains to be brought into the country.
So, Prof, that's Dr. Sagra, whom I know you know very well. But you are the Executive Director of the Center for Food Safety and Agricultural Research. Hearing that Nigeria cannot survive mainly on the rural kind of agriculture, that we need GMOs. What's your take on that?
Well, thank you once again, and thank you to the viewers. This was the very same clip I watched that got me, to say the least, infuriated, shameful. Shameful in the sense that that is not the truth. And for a national officer of Dr. Yemisi's standard, well respected, I expected nothing but the truth. Number one, here is the DG of NAFDA, the regulator, openly advertising seeds, proprietary material of foreign countries, companies. It's not a statement of fact that we cannot survive without GMO seeds. Like I alluded to in my previous outing here, one of my previous outings here, I come from Benue State, where a lot of food is produced, which has earned the state the acronym of the food basket of the nation. Right now, as I speak with you, a lot of fruits are wasting in Benue State, and they are known GMOs. Oranges, mangoes, tomatoes, vegetables. Now, to buy into or to sell the narrative to Nigerians and the people of Africa that we cannot do without proprietary seeds from Monsanto or Bayer or Syngenta or whatever company it is uncharitable, to say the least. Because there are good agronomic practices that have been jettisoned in this country. We from the academia have trained people, and we have curricula that expresses these good agronomic practices. For example, if you drop a GMO seed here, it won't grow because you don't meet the good agronomic practices that will encourage its growth. So now, to say that our population is so large is to undermine the fact that even right now in this country, food insecurity, as it's being generally touted, it's not all about non or insufficient production of food. It's also about economic deprivation. People are there, food is there is a glut at certain seasons, there are no sufficient technologies to preserve, and therefore we experience enormous post-harvest losses. Food that would have been preserved for future consumption. So it's not the truth. GMOs are a market strategy, are a commercial strategy to erode national sovereignties of countries supposedly independent. For example, when you submit your food sovereignty on the altar of so-called food security or food insecurity to some proprietary seeds, and now she's talking about grains, that we cannot continue to plant grains. I mean, who told us that narrative? Is it the science? What's the difference between grain and seed? Is it not just about sorting and some germination preservation? So you see, these narratives that I have always said, that have been sold us from without, and we have both beaten the hook, line, and sinker. These narratives, if we'll insist and persist on shoving them down the throat of Nigerians, innocent, ignorant Nigerians, we are invariably positioning our country on the altar of, with sovereignty concerns, to sink. And when we realize, it will be too late. Nigeria has very large arable land. Nigeria has very agile, youthful population. As a scholar, as a teacher, I also know that I have a responsibility to train young people to modernize agriculture, such that it would attract this median population of 19-year-olds that we have surplus in Nigeria, to drop them back into agriculture. I also know that the political actors have a responsibility to secure the country such that the ungoverned spaces that ought to have been converted to agricultural production would be safe for people like you and I to go in and produce food. Fly over Nigeria today, you would see that there is so much land that is yet cultivated. And someone comes to sell us a very narrow, stripped narrative that without GMOs.
Are you worried that this defense is coming at an institutional level?
Very worried, because it smacks of institutional capture. And the companies that are behind this, it's in the open, it's in the media. These companies have a reputation of institutional capture through bribery. So I'm worried. I'm not insinuating, but I'm expressing my worry.
Now, another bit of the conversation that is very unsettling and that is a subject of controversy is the use of Roundup to kill, pesticides around GMO crops. Some would say that the process of altering the DNA of GMOs itself does not include chemicals. And that was the question put through to her yesterday. I'd like you to listen to her response, and then I'd like you to respond as well.
You made a statement by saying that it kills weeds. No. When you're talking about the GMOs, it's the insertion of a gene to present a particular trait that probably is absent. For instance, for drought resistance, for insect infestation, it is not the killing of the weeds. In the case of GM, let's talk about PBR cowpea, for instance. it gets devastated. Farmers have huge losses when this Maruca insect attacks the PBR, the cowpea. And this gene has been brought in to be able to make sure that this insect is not able to attack it and is able to grow during the drought. We know what happened quite recently about the climate change, and there was some drought. But those who planted the PBR cowpea did not experience this. And also, when you're talking about the weeds and things like that, it's usually in the case of GM. In the case of, let's say, the PBR, like I'm using as an example now, it does not make the farmer to spray insecticides. Probably the farmer might spray once or twice, but on the non-GM, the farmer might spray up to 7, 8, 10 times to be able to make sure that these infestations do not occur. And you ask us, is it better to have these insecticides, to have these pesticides being sprayed, and our cowpea is rejected all over the world? And you begin to ask yourself that, no, this has not been so. Like we...
So there you have it, Prof. Is there chemicals, chemical introduction involved in the genetical re-engineering of the crop? And if not, is there an impact on the crop even when chemicals are introduced to make the crops resistant?
You see, the science of it is very clear. It's not a single line argument. PBR cowpea that she referenced is actually BT, Bacillus thuringiensis bacteria, or bacterium, that is used to modify the genome of the cowpea to make it resistant to the pests. But now, it's on record scientifically that aside from the chemicals, what does Bacillus thuringiensis do to the pests? What's the biology? What's the biotechnology? What's the biochemistry that informs the resistance of this cowpea to the pests? It busts their stomachs. When they eat it, they die. Now, there are instances of expressions of these genetic markers in the gut of consumers of these materials, these GMOs. That's on one hand. On the other hand, genetic modification is not just to resist pest infestation, it is also to resist pesticide application. Remember, Monsanto in the United States of America that commenced the process of production and patenting of Roundup. Glyphosate is the parent material, is the parent ingredient, the major ingredient in Roundup. What happened when Roundup was applied on glycine max, that is soybeans? It affected the crop material equally, as well as it affected the weeds. So what did Monsanto do? They came back to re-engineer the glycine max, that's the soybean, so that it would resist the application of Roundup, such that Roundup will majorly attack the weeds and spare the crop. Now, what that entailed was that, number one, and we must get these narratives very straight, it encouraged large-scale production, big food, production of food, soybeans. And what happened and what is happening today is that aside from the fact that Roundup is applied heavily on the fields without the fear of adversely affecting the crop, which leads to persistence because so much concentration of it in the environment makes it to even cross to non-target organisms. It also overflows to surface waters. It also leaches into groundwaters. And all these are directly consumed by people. So these are the ripple effects. Aside from that fact, today, if you go into wheat production and many of those crops, Roundup is also a desiccant. Glyphosate is also a desiccant. And because of large cropping, big farmers now don't have much time to allow the crops to dry up in the field. So they spray Roundup on the crops. And that is why today, despite the fact that this argument is killed, that the process of genetic engineering does not incorporate the chemical, the agrochemical, if you take GMO produce now and test them in the laboratories, subject them to laboratory tests, you will see residues of those chemicals. And that means people who consume the GMOs are invariably consuming those chemicals. And what happens next? The health implications. By the way, I want to announce that it's a public record that the IARC, which is an arm of the United Nations, has classified Roundup as probably carcinogenic. It's there in the open literature. So why are we promoting it? And you can go around Nigeria today and you see farmers are so encouraged, spraying, applying Roundup on their fields. It's everywhere, ubiquitous. And it's because there are varieties of soybeans, there are varieties of rice, there are varieties of cowpea, there are varieties of maize that are resistant to Roundup.
Prof, there's a lot to exhaust within the time we have, but we also raise the question of seed sovereignty, and I know you've touched on it, but I would like you to hear how she responded, because this is balancing the other side of the argument. So, Kayode did ask a question around seed sovereignty, and this was the response of the DG.
I would like to say that one of our mission as a regulatory agency is that some of these, our developers who have brought in the seeds, we have insisted that, yes, you have to make sure that the seeds are produced here in Nigeria. And the Seed Council, which has that mandate, is working extensively. We are in talks, we are in collaborations, we're there to see that we make sure that it must not always be brought in. And there are a lot of seed companies.
So that's a question about this seed not being grown. You can't grow naturally. You have to, whatever happens, you have to still bring them and import them, which is where the word food colonialism and all of this came in. But we asked her that direct question. So this was her response. What do you make of it?
She said that they ensure that those who bring in those seeds must ensure that the seeds are produced here in Nigeria. Under whose patent? Who owns the patent of those seeds? And who owns or controls these companies, so-called national companies, that are presenting those seeds for registration? The question it's begging is that the technology that orchestrates the production and patenting of these seeds is not owned by us. Somebody is patenting life forms from outside Nigeria. So it's a very clear case that no single Nigerian company has the patent indigenously that is producing the seeds. Secondly, the Seed Council of Nigeria, we talked about institutional capture previously. The Seed Council of Nigeria is also populated by such people as are populated in our national agencies that have submitted themselves to be easily captured by those that are bringing in those seeds. Now, if those seeds are produced here in Nigeria, what's making Bill Gates frequent this country? What's Bill Gates doing here? Who owns the patents? Controls the producer. And by the way, the technology, because when we talk patent, those who are non-lawyers may not appreciate what we're talking about. The technology, the biochemistry, the biotechnology, the genomic science that engineers the genotype and phenotype presentations of the seeds are created, manipulated from outside Nigeria. And like I said here some time ago, it can be tantamounted to gain or function.
So which one is the bigger problem? Which one is the bigger problem here? that, is it the bigger problem is, let's just say no, no, no to GMO, or if we want to accommodate GMOs, we have to produce it ourselves? Which is the argument for you?
Firstly, at this stage, we don't have the capacity. Like as I speak to you, the National Biotechnology Research and Development Agency has equipment in a laboratory in Port Harcourt that for the past 10 years they have not even been removed from the box. Nobody to man those laboratories. They have not been trained. So we shift attention from the main thing and go on the trivialities. For now, we don't have the capacity, no, no, no to GMOs. Secondly, if we are saying let's produce GMOs here, yes, there I will not say no. But the question that needs to be answered is, why GMOs?
But as we coastal, what do you think about regulation? She spoke yesterday about how they're working to begin labeling of GMO crops in Nigeria. How effective has that been, considering the time frame for the existence of the institution itself, which has been around for some time?
How effective can that ever be? That the woman selling akara, the one they call in the North Kusi, on the streets, frying it by the roadside, how can she label that these beans, this cowpea, by the way, what they call cowpea is what the Nigerian on the street calls beans. These beans that is used for the production of this akara is GMO, to avail the consumer the option of choice. How can it be possible that the woman selling, is it ogi, the akamo, the gruel, will it tell someone that will label the gruel to notify you or I that this is made from GMO maize, Teller maize, or not? So it's impracticable for the Nigerian context. And you see, our agriculture, sorry, this was not the direction of your question, but it came to my mind, and it's important I tell Nigerians. Our agriculture employs the highest number of people, our agriculture, and that's the way it's meant to be. So by the time you promote these GMOs and you encourage big food, big agriculture, large-scale farmers, you are invariably putting more smallholder farmers out of business. So the labeling issue is impracticable, and this is within the purview of Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission. They need to wade into this. These things are not labeled. Nigerians don't have a choice. They just consume what's available. And again, sorry, just a minute, you will observe that there is a principle that is at play here. Make the Nigerian very hungry and present whatever. How do they do this? Bandits go attack somewhere, people are hurled into IDP camps, they are hungry, and you bring food. Do they care whether the seeds, the grains you are supplying them in the IDP camps are coming from Ukraine or from Yugoslavia or whatever country? No, because they are already hungry and desperate. And that's been the story here in this country. So labeling is not there, it's impracticable, and then, by the way, even if you push these materials out, people have already been pushed to desperate ends because of the other attributes we talked about earlier.
Clearly, this is a major issue. You wonder what kind of legislation we have to ensure that Nigerians are safe with what they eat, what kind of thinking, again, is happening at that level. Well, we had some insight into it, but with these facts that you have presented, it needs a rethinking. Professor Christobag Amwa, Executive Director, Center for Food Safety and Agricultural Research, CEFSA, and now the Vice Chancellor of Benue State University of Agriculture, Science and Technology. Thank you so much for your time and for your insights on this one.
Thank you.
Well, so we've presented you with more fact, more data, more science in this conversation. But we'll take a quick break now, and when we return, we'll talk about the National Assembly, Constitution review, is it a new one or otherwise, politics, and more. Stay with us.